And welcome back to the fairest Cape, and she is splendidly showing off this morning. I tell you what, we couldn't have ordered better weather even if we sent that request ourselves. So we've moved from the flower market in Adderley Street down to Darling Street, which is of course the site of this magnificent building that is the Cape Town City Hall. And just by way of history, this magnificent structure dates back to the turn of the century as well. So at the beginning of the 20th century, understand the then mayor laid the cornerstone of the City Hall in 1900, but it was only completed in 1905. And of course, immortalized forever, the statue of Madiba. This is where Madiba, on the 11th of February 1990, made his first public speech when he came out of prison. And of course, as you can imagine, tens of thousands of people filling up this parade to listen to a free Nelson Mandela, which of course then paved the way for democratic dispensation. And that is what we are celebrating here today. The fact that we have the State of the Nation address to a free democratic South Africa. And of course, 30 years of democracy is what we'll be celebrating on the 27th of April 2024. But just to give us a sense of what's to be expected, we still see the works carrying on. We can see some people coming through for a walkabout. I'm not sure if the person I'm seeing there from the corner of my eye is Begitele. It could be, but slightly far out. So we'll come back to that. But for now, I have the spokesperson of Parliament with me, Moloto Motapwa. Thanks so much for coming through. Good morning. So in terms of preparations, Mr. Motapwa, how is it going?
Well, it's all systems go, that's what we can say. This is a culmination of months of work, as you will know. The State of the Nation address is not something that we begin the preparation when the year starts, but it's something that, we had already started last year around October. So there has been a lot of meetings. We've been working together with various departments. We've been working with the presidency. But as you know, it is also one of the rare occasions where the three arms of the state comes together under one roof. So we've been also having meetings and working together to prepare this important event of the state with the other arms, the judiciary, the executive, as I've been saying, with through the department. So it's all systems go. The presiding officers, as well as the ministers, they were here until very late at night, inspecting every aspect of our preparations, inside and outside the hall, looking at how the event will unfold, how the actual sitting will unfold, what will happen after the State of the Nation address. So it has been quite a very hectic time, but you must also appreciate, Sakina, that this year we've got quite a number of events that are taking place. As you correctly said, this is we are celebrating the 30 years of our democracy, and of course there will be elections, and then after the elections probably we'll be here again or at another venue for the opening of Parliament. So, and also at the same time, this is the last State of the Nation address for the 6th Parliament. So there's a lot of work behind the scenes that is happening with regard to the compilations and finalizations of legacy reports, so that the next generation of MPs will find these reports and be able to appreciate the work that this Parliament has done, this 6th Parliament has done, and what is it that still needs to be done. So there is quite a lot of work that is happening, and all these things are happening concurrently. So, but we can say that, as you can see, you have been here since early morning, and you have seen the work around the hall. Everything is going very well. It's all systems go. We are just waiting for the president to come at 7 o'clock to deliver his State of the Nation address.
Mr. Motapwa, of course, as you say, this is the last State of the Nation address for the 6th administration. But of course, this is the 3rd time that this precinct will play host to the State of the Nation address because of the fire that gutted the National Assembly and parts of the offices in that part of Parliament. So we were told that there was a 2 billion rand budget that was allocated for restoring and fixing that. How far is that? Because last year, the last time I heard, there was supposed to be a cleanup campaign that started, moving out the rubble and things like that, but then it was halted. So how far is that?
No work was halted. I mean, the entire, the whole of last year, there was a lot of work that was happening. We partnered with, as you will recall, with the Development Bank of South Africa. We have, because they are very good in terms of infrastructure management and project management of this kind of projects. So we entered into partnership with them so that they are our implementation partner in terms of restoration. And they have been doing a great job. The contractors that have been on site, they've been working day and night. Firstly, they ensured that we repurpose about 2 floors in the 90 Plain Street, which is one of the buildings in Parliament, to ensure that we create about 155 offices so that members of Parliament can be able to come back physically full-time. Because remember, a lot of them were displaced because of their offices being banned and they had no place to work in Parliament. But at the same time, we have been removing the rubble and the debris inside, and that has been a lot of work, months of work to do that, to prepare the place for the actual construction.
So is that complete, that part, the removal of the rubble?
That is complete, and as well as you will recall that not only the National Assembly Chamber building was banned, but also the adjacent, the interleading building, the old Assembly wing. So we put also the temporary roofing structure so that when we begin, we are not disrupted by the weather conditions, etc. So we are at a point where during this very soon we will be announcing when is the actual construction going to start. And as we have committed, this construction will take place, will run until next year, December.
So that 2 million rand budget, 2 billion rand budget, is that still going to be sufficient? How much of that has been spent as a result of having to host, not just the State of the Nation address, but some of the sittings of Parliament here at the Cape Town City Hall? How much of that budget has been spent already?
No, not even a cent of it, because you will recall that when the Treasury made an announcement, they said that they are giving us 2 billion rand for the actual construction. And then, of course, there is another 115 or so million that was supposed to go towards, Parliament for Parliament business continuity. So meaning that we are continuing with the business of Parliament to support the continuation of the business of Parliament from both the COVID-19 pandemic as well as the fire. So that is part of the money that we used for the creation of those 155 offices at the 90 Plain Street. And to ensure that everything else, for instance, your ICT, because that is a very expensive part of the work of Parliament, ensuring that the proceedings that are happening here are broadcast to the rest of South Africa so that we bridge the gap between South Africans and their Parliament and they are able to know what is happening in Parliament. So all that money, the 115, has been going to that to ensure business continuity. So the 2 billion rand really is intended for the actual work that of construction.
Mr. Moloto Mothapo, of course, we'll talk more. I believe the Speaker will also make her way here later. So we'll leave it there with you. And that, of course, the spokesperson of Parliament, Mr. Moloto Mothapo. And we're going to speak to SONA Ngwasheng, who's also an analyst here, talking to us about, what to expect, given that this is the final State of the Nation address for the 6th administration. But, of course, it is the 8th address that will be delivered by President Cyril Ramaphosa. SONA Ngwasheng is coming in, and we'll talk to her about what the nation can expect, because this is an opportunity for the president to actually speak to the nation, and so much to talk about. Asanda, good morning. Thanks so much for coming through. So talk to us. There's so much going on at the moment, whether it's domestically, whether it's internationally, the geopolitical landscape truly in flux at the moment. So what would you say would be the most important thing for President Cyril Ramaphosa to address this evening?
Well, thank you, Sakina, for having me. I think the most important thing is what he's going to tell us is the 30 years of governance by ANC and what they have achieved and their ability to provide widespread access to services in South Africa. But of course, he'll also have to address the challenges that they're facing, which is number one, corruption, and number two, I think he definitely will have to speak to issues of crime, but also I think in order to engage not just business but also ordinary South Africans, he'll have to talk about the fact that we're sitting on more than 300 days of load shedding in the last year alone, and it's getting the number of days that we are under load shedding are increasing on a day by day basis. And I think when we look at corruption and its impact, when we look at load shedding and its impact, and we look at also the lack of infrastructure investment, because sometimes in South Africa we focus so much on what's happening right now that we forget that this government has to now start thinking, if they win the elections, what are the next 5 years going to look like? What are the next 10 years going to look like? Investments for 12 years from now are made now. And so he needs to give an investment outlook for the next 30 years of South Africa, having come out of the past 30 years. And I think those are the things that he's going to be looking at. Of course, he's going to remind us about the amazing contribution that South Africa made to the Palestine and Israel debacle with taking, Israel all the way to the ICJ, which is something that was very good for brand South Africa. And it's something that also kind of gave a feel-good a feel-good kind of mood for a country which is always, as Africans, we're always on such a yo-yo of high highs and low lows. Just yesterday, I'm sure he'll mention that as well, that just yesterday we were already sure we were the AFCON Cup winners, and unfortunately we just missed that. After, if you had spoken to South Africans 2 weeks ago, no one would have been talking about Bafana, but as soon as they were winning, suddenly everybody was there and wanting to join them. And so I think he's going to try and balance what are the positives that we have and what are the challenges that we still need to face as a country. And I think, all of those things, whether you're talking about sport or politics or any of the things that affect the life, the material life of South Africans and our general kind of mood and perspectives about who we are and where we are.
So it is, of course, a general election year. So one would imagine that some would say there would be quite a bit of electioneering going on, especially this year, given the state of our political arena, given the influx of new parties, given the state of what seems to be general dissatisfaction among the South African public over bread and butter issues like employment, like the high cost of living, inflationary pressures that make it very difficult for people to basically eke out a decent living. So what can we expect from that front? How's it going to be different from the January 8th statement that was delivered recently?
Well, I don't think it's going to be that much different, Sakina, because the ANC and the government that has been in power for the past 30 years, they do need to reflect on what are the gains that they've made in the past 30 years, but they also need to reflect on what are the challenges they've faced and whether they've fared better or worse in terms of trying to solve the crisis that South Africa is at times. And so I don't expect the president to deliver that much, and by way of difference, maybe he'll bring new statistics or he'll expand on previous issues. But I think he's definitely going to be addressing issues around poverty and what the ANC has done to alleviate poverty, while also potentially speaking about the fact that we have an underlying hunger crisis at the moment. And, we must always remember that it's not just South Africa that's undergoing this tough economic situation. It is a global issue. We are all, as a world, recovering from a post-COVID pandemic economy. And so all economies are struggling with this. But South Africa's struggle is made worse by the fact that there is endemic corruption. And unfortunately, there also is an NPA that just doesn't seem to be able to bring people to book that they are supposed to be bringing to book. Instead, what we're seeing is that they're making deals, particularly on the Gupta companies, and they're getting these settlements. But I think people, yes, of course, we want our money back. Yes, of course, we want the settlements. But give us some arrests. Let us see some people in jail, because people who are corrupt and are corrupt with big monies and do not get arrested and do not spend time in prison give the message to future criminals that it is possible for you to bankrupt the state to the level that the Guptas, to the level that all of the ANC cadres colluded to be able to do and get away with it. And so we need to see people in jail, we need to see people serving long sentences, and we need to make sure that cases, what happened with Estina Dairy, for example, where the case fell apart in court, that is unacceptable in a country that already has the Zondo Commission and every single kind of documentation, and people literally risk their lives to give evidence at Zondo to make sure that these people are brought to book.
And that Sanang Washing, she'll be speaking to us throughout the morning and just talking about what to expect from the State of the Nation Address 2024. And of course, there will be two of these, because after the elections, there will be another State of the Nation Address to usher in the, that would be the 7th administration in South Africa. For now, it's back to studio.